Good morning, farmers. It's a beautiful and albeit a little bit hot July day here in Wisconsin. So welcome back to another Mahner Farms video. Today we're kicking it off. Well, what day is it? It's Monday. I know that for sure. I think it maybe is the 8th. Monday, July 8th, and it's about 80 degrees. It's dry. It's not supposed to rain today, but who knows? Maybe it will. Actually, it's not supposed to rain for the rest of this week. So we are going to try to make some hay. We're going to go over there and probably try to side rake it today. We already cut it back before a couple rainstorms, so you know that's going to be some top quality hay. But we're going to try raking it, I believe, around 2 p.m. So I've got a little while yet. It's around noon right now. I'm going to run over to the lumberyard, see if they got my metal in, and if they do, I'll buy a bunch of lumber, pay for the metal, possibly go and grab paint right away for our project that we're going to work on. Hopefully I can get all that done and get it stored at the farm before we're ready to rake. So that's kind of the game plan for today. Should be, well, it depends. I should be able to get all of that done and all the raking done today, or I should say between me and Pops. But after that, I don't know if we're gonna, well, we probably won't be baling today, but if we do, we'll bail tomorrow, and I'll probably just have it in this video, so you'll get to enjoy it all at once anyway. But yeah, let's just get to it. All right, I know this isn't gonna be a very long trip to get over to the lumberyard, but I still don't want to have to drive it. It's just so hot today, so we're gonna give her a little shortcut. And we're there. Well, we got most of our lumber. That's 3 3/4 inch sheets of treated exterior glued plywood, 20 2x4s, 20 1x6s, and 8 1x4s, and then a sheet of 1/2 inch plywood that I'm going to finish off the doors with. Now we're just waiting on our metal, which they're unloading over there. So whole process is going rather smoothly. All of this together with the metal for the roofing and all the lumber that you see before you here was $1,069, I believe. So moving along, definitely on the budget. We still got to get all the paint and hardware, but not too bad. Woo-wee, all right, it is really hot out today. It's going to be a good day for drying hay, but we got back to my place, dropped off our sheet of 1/2 inch plywood, and now we got the rest of the stuff strapped back down, and we're going to head over to the farm. Whew, sweating already, but making good progress, and nothing has gone wrong so far, so that's a good day. Well, we're getting right into the action with some side raking. We've had plenty of time for the hay to dry. I'll give you one more look at some of the fields we're doing. We're going to be all over the place today. It's just 4 small fields, and so that's why we're using, just a small tractor with a single rotary rake, but should work fine. Tractor's been fueled up, everything's been greased up, so all goes according to plan, which it should. Nothing should break today. I already had some trouble starting the tractor because apparently there's a tricky neutral safety on this one in particular, so we had to bypass that entirely. Setting the height based on eyeball measurements. And we are off to the races. Now, the hay may look a little like crap, but that's because it is. No, I'm just kidding. There's nothing in particular wrong with this hay. It's just that obviously it rained so much that we were late to cutting it, and then we had several days of rain afterwards, so now we've got another 6 inches of green growth underneath. So it may look like dog shit, but it's not that bad, and we're actually going to get a decent yield from it. The nice thing about doing these little piss around fields is that we actually have equipment, I was going to say small enough, but large enough to handle it. Most of the fields that we used to make hay out of were all way too big, so doing it with equipment this small was just a hairy pain in the ass that took way too long. But let's just get some nice footage of this side raking going on. Just a little bit of history about this field that we're currently working on. You may be able to tell it's quite small. Well, it is quite small. And it used to just be part of the farmyard, and then at one point we fenced the whole thing in and used it for our small stock for grazing during the summer, calves and such. And we ran it like that for the last couple years that we were farming, and then of course when we stopped farming we didn't need pasture set up for calves anymore, and so we took it down, and since then it's just been used for a small hayfield. It yields relatively well. We've had years where we got a surprising amount off this, but when you cut first crop and mid-July, you're bound to get a surprising amount of hay off small amounts of fields. Quality is just going to be something that's reduced. Despite the age of our equipment, you may be able to tell that it works relatively well. Like I said, we're going to lose some hay in this field to spoilage. Well, not so much spoilage, but just, weather-induced crap. Just because, like I said, it had to get rained on for a couple days, and then, of course, we got extra new growth coming up through it. So we'll get some that we don't pick up, even though these rotary rakes are pretty good at getting the hay up and out of the grass. While he's working on that, and just to give ourselves some time to cool off a little bit ourselves, and also the camera I'm using, because I just got a notification that device is too hot. Video quality may suffer, which is interesting. Never had that before, but it makes sense given this weather. We're gonna go take a look at something else. So, walking into the shed right now so I can show you some of the equipment that we've already used for this process. One thing you can see right here is our 3-point disc cutter. I don't know if you could call this full-blown a disc bind. It doesn't have a crimper or anything. It's basically just a mower. This is a floating drum cutter. I'm just gonna use all sorts of different terms all over the place until I find one that feels right for myself. That we used to just use for like marsh grass and cutting ditches and stuff like that. Nowadays, since we're only doing these small fields, we pretty much primarily use this one for the little bits of hay that we've still been making. It obviously doesn't get as close to the ground and doesn't go as level. You can still do a pretty good job with this. Like I said, the stuff we're doing today looks bad because of all the new growth growing up, but it does a decent enough job for smaller tasks like this. Our full-size disc bind back here is much larger, of course. It's, nothing compared to modern stuff, but back when we were using it, it was still a larger disc bind for the area, at least. This we haven't used for a while, though it has been used in the last 20 years. I think it was used for hay to cut a couple of the larger fields maybe 5 years ago, and we, blew a hydraulic line and had to get it fixed and stuff, so it's super old and wore out, but it does still work. It's still saying the device is too hot. It could be because I was using the 5x optical zoom. I know that makes it run a little warmer, but the quality is really good for being zoomed in 5 times on a phone camera. Just in case anybody out there wasn't aware, quality-wise, we are actually doing all of this on a Google Pixel phone, so technology's come a long way. Back in my day, they didn't make personal camcorders that got this good of quality, so great to have something like this in your pocket at all times. Little final shot. He's just finishing up the little triangle in the middle. We've pretty much finished raking this entire field, and since we're supposed to have a couple dry days here, I think there's a good chance we're actually going to be able to bale it. All right, so we can explain what we're doing here just in case anyone out there isn't familiar. So like I said, this hay has been down for a couple days. It's been rained on, so we got wet in certain areas. So what he did was he went along and he rolled some of these rows just to get the absolute wettest part up to the top. It's 80 degrees with a gentle breeze today. That's good hay drying weather. So we've got the wettest stuff on top now, and what we're going to do is we're going to leave that alone. We'll check it again at the end of the day, and if it has gotten sufficiently dry enough, we will then go through and roll it one more time just to make sure that all of the hay has been dried off. And so by doing what we did here, it's been exposed. We've exposed all this ground in between all the hay to dry off, and we've got the wettest hay on top. So now all that ground can dry off in this extreme sunlight, and then afterwards the hay can be rolled back on top of it. So that is how we're going to get a nice solid dry hay so we can actually bale this stuff and make some high quality grass bales. And just getting the last little edge of the ditch, and then we'll be able to move on to the next field. All right, we're moving on to our second field here that we're going to be raking. This stuff is cut all the same way, same time, so it's got all the same problems, but should be able to do just fine. History about this field, so you can see it's also not a very large field, probably looking at, I don't know, between 1 and 2 acres would be my guess for the tillable surface here. This used to be pasture. We had pastured this forever. As long as I can remember, this field had a fence around it, and not just this field, but all the way in the back, up into the trees, everything was all pastured. Up until probably only about 10 years ago when we finally came and tore the pasture down. Now, we hadn't had cows in it since we were farming. We used to keep heifers in this field, but, or this pasture, I should say. But eventually we realized that we should probably just take the fence down and start doing something else with it. So to prevent it from growing up in brush, it became a hayfield, and now it's an uneven hayfield. Now, the fun thing about this field is, even if we were making all the hay and we were using the bigger disc bind to do that, we would still need to use the light floating one on this field because it is a little bit too bumpy, gets a little too close to some river and swamp areas, so it's better to use our floating cutter for this one. But let's just watch some good old raking in this one. Taking a look at the hay before we come along and rake it, you can see we've got quite a bit of disparity here. So right below us here, this is all fresh green growth. You can see a lot of this has grown since this was cut. Then we have the hay that was cut on top already bone dry. But why we're raking it, you get down under that, and now we've got wet material down here. So not only the new growth, but just the stuff where all that water has been sitting. So by turning all this, we're going to give the sun and wind an opportunity to actually dry this hay out like it would naturally over a much longer period of time, assuming we actually had dry weather. So, just in case anyone out there didn't understand why someone would break hay before baling it, it does more than just put it into rows which are conveniently baled up. And given we have a time and a dry stretch here, ideally what we would have done was just tedded this today, probably early this morning, and then raked it tonight and then baled it tomorrow. But like I said in a previous video, our tedder is actually currently broken. So that's why we're raking and then raking again. Some people call that bumping or rolling, just to when you're doing it more than once. Raking is typically the step right before baling. You can do it. There's a lot of different ways. Farming is more of an art, less of a science. But just so we don't get the camera a little bit too warm in all this heat and constant recording, we're actually just gonna... And there we go. So that skips most of the progress or process. Progress is good. Process is, I guess, also good, but just longer. So you can see what we've got going on here. We're mostly just merging all of the hay into one area. So like I said, same as before, the whole idea here is we're doing a lot of merging, and then later we're gonna bump it. And that'll give us a fairly dry process and should make it easier to actually get the stuff baled. So fun little game for everyone in the audience today. How many bales are we gonna make today? So I'm showing you 4 different small fields. Probably somewhere between 5 and 8 acres of land total. The fun part of this is going to be the fact that I still don't know if we're going to do small squares or if we're just going to do round bales. So let me know your guess down in the comment section. By the end of this video, with all 4 of the fields that I'm showing you today, how many bales total do you think we're going to get? And you, like I said, you can either do small squares, 4x5 rounds, or you could give me your answer for both, and then we'll see how close you are. All right, we're on to field number 3, which is called the beggy patch, or the first beggy patch. I will give anybody in the comment section 5 points if they can figure out why we call it the beggy patch. All right, and that's pretty much a good look at the first beggy patch here. So, like I said, I've showed you from various angles, but keep in mind how much hay we've shown you on here. So you can keep that number in mind, or that figure in mind, for when you're guessing how many bales we're gonna make off this. And we've arrived at our 4th field. This one colloquially known as the second beggy patch. Another 5 points to anyone in the comment section that can figure out why we call it that. It's really not a trick question. It's not complicated either. Ooh, lots of wild strawberries on the ground. Too bad there ain't no strawberries on them. That last fielder on the first beggy patch probably had the best hay out of all 4 of these fields. This one doesn't look bad quality-wise, but it sure doesn't look like there's a lot of quantity. I'm kind of wondering if a bunch of it didn't blow away. I don't know how well you can see it here on the camera, but from the overwhelming amount of wild strawberries I'm seeing in the undergrowth in this here hayfield, I'm guessing our soil might have gotten a touch acidic up here without any lime ever being spread on it. See, back when we were dairy farming, you know, you lime the aisle every day, getting all that lime going into your manure, and you spread that out in the fields. Not only are you refreshing the soil with all those nutrients from the manure, namely nitrogen, and some phosphorus and stuff. But also, you get all that lime constantly getting into the gutter, so you're adding all your calcium and all that sort of stuff back into the soil. And that helps lower the pH balance, or I should say raise the pH balance, so it's not acidic, makes it more alkaline, or hopefully neutral. We haven't done that for quite some time on this field, so you can see there's a lot of weeds in this field. Mostly a thick underbelly of wild strawberries, but I'm also seeing some dandelions, but not too many. There's some plantain. I don't see any lamb's quarter or pigweed or anything like that. Definitely would tell me that the soil is probably a little bit more on the acidic side. And like I said, you can tell grass here is a little bit more sparse. Doesn't look bad quality-wise for the hay, but definitely not as thick as the other fields we were cutting. So I just checked some of my field notes for this land that we're doing, and I figure all said and done, it's kind of hard to be accurate when you're dealing with smaller numbers like this, but I figure we've got probably around 4 acres that we made hay off of today. So seems like a lot of work for 4 acres, but they're the little fields that if we don't do, nobody will. So it's somewhere between 4 and 5 acres total. Hard to tell, you know, you lose a little bit on the edges to trees and stuff like that, but I think we're right around there. So again, final estimates. It sounds like we're going to round bale it. I think we're going to be doing round bales. I believe they're 4x5s. If you can do your best guess based on the amount of hay that I've shown you today, and based off the acreage, we did about 4 acres, somewhere between 4 and 5, but I'd err closer to 4 than 5. If you can guess how many bales we have, and if I get around to recording the round baling, I'll show you at the end of this video. But if not, you'll just have to have your best guess, and I'll answer if you're right or not. Well, we got this field pretty much wrapped up too. I'll give you a little panning shot. It's probably panning shot while we're doing that. So like I said, the game in the comments is how many bales. But with all that being said, hope you enjoyed this video. It's always fun to get out in the fields even for a little bit. Hopefully, before too long, I'll just be doing all of it. So I won't have to wait on other people for anything. And that'll be nice. But for now, that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it was entertaining or useful or something like that. But that's all for today, and we'll see you next time.